So my first day at a glider course was quite full of ups and downs, and today I will tell you my experience with it because in my opinion it was definitely something. But anyway, my day had already started with me arriving an hour late, and not even at the first day of the course where all the people that have signed up show up and get extra briefings. I wasn't there on that day as I was unable to show up. I showed up on the 7th day and was an hour late, but thankfully I was lucky as when I arrived at my aero club my instructor was still at base. Then I got quickly briefed and essentially I skipped the tedious process of actually preparing the gliders and packing stuff necessary to set up the glider square, which, believe me, it's quite tedious, and I will briefly explain it now. First we meet up. 2. We get the gliders out of the hangar. 3. We wash the gliders. 4. Get the battery for the gliders to power the radio. 5. Pack these things to some car or van. Yeah, that's a lot of things. 5. Taxi or really just tow the gliders to the place of the glider square. 6. Set up the glider square, and finally 7. Do the weather briefings and pre-flight briefings, and that's it. And I on my first day got lucky by being late, which I am not an advocate of. Do not be late on your first day. But anyway, I got to work with preparing a glider for flight in the role of ground crew, and honestly it went pretty smoothly. I learned how to attach the winch cable to the glider and how to not get my fingers ripped off when holding the wing of a glider during a winch takeoff. For those that don't know, yes, for the first phase of a glider takeoff via a winch, you do need to hold the wing of the glider so it doesn't hit the ground and damage itself. And for me, this process went fairly smoothly and everything was going well until it was my turn to fly. I put on the Aero Club's parachute, sat down and waited for the glider to land, and was informed of 2 things. The first was that my instructor, who I was going to fly with, is around 65 years old and was disliked by other student pilots due to him stressing them out unnecessarily, and 2, literally just 10 minutes before my flight, a different instructor received news that allegedly, it wasn't confirmed in the article, rather just the instructor knew a guy who knew a guy and so on, basically source, trust me bro, former world gliding champion from the 1970s crashed on approach and died in a glider just 10 minutes before my flight. I am not making this up. Here is the article. I don't think there is an English version. If somebody finds it, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, that piece of news was quite comforting, especially before my literal first flight in a glider with an instructor that's quite old and not of best health. So yeah, my first flight was going to be something, and after takeoff, as we disconnected from the winch cable at 220 meters, which was quite low, we were forced to do a significantly smaller traffic pattern, and then we got to the final approach, and I am not going to lie, we came in low, which is not recommended considering the fact that, mind you, on both ends of the runway are trees that are like 100 meters away from the ends of the runway. Coming in at a higher altitude than a regular approach isn't really all that optional. Thankfully we landed safely, and thankfully the rest of the day was fairly uneventful. I completed a bunch of exercises, got chewed out for not knowing how to fly, stuff like that. Although despite the nature of my first flight, I fell in love with flying anyway. Even despite the fact that I disliked my instructor not only for his attitude but also ineffective teaching and unnecessary stressing out of student pilots. Yes, there were some problems, but they were resolved anyway. My first few flights were amazing to me, but just what did I go through? Well, first an intro-like flight to see if I'm fit to fly, then a flight with some control over the controls. And later I begun learning how to turn, how to control the glider on approach and flying during crosswind conditions, how to fly in a traffic pattern, and generally how to not die in a glider. I can obviously tell you more stories about my glider course, like about the time we essentially got a free private airshow, or about the rather not so intelligent situations my colleagues had found themselves in. But overall, my experience was quite positive, and I'm not going to say that I don't recommend it, as doing a glider course not only is quite useful in developing flying skills, but gliding is often the best way to actually get your foot into aviation due to its price and arguable simplicity. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about the video in the comments.